Good morning and welcome to the show. I want to thank Jeff, and Jeff is coming up at 12. I want to thank everybody in the station for their wishes and warm welcome this week after a year in the radio station. Julie's producing today. We've got a packed show today. We're going to be talking to some childcare workers in a few minutes. We're then going to be talking to Seamus McGrath, former officer of the court in Waterford, regarding how to vote. Dean Egan is going to be coming in to talk to us about the Carlow Kilkenny constituency. We'll also have an interview with Stephanie Hickey, who was abused by her brother-in-law, Batty Prendergast, and her new book, Running from the Shadows, is being launched in Dungarvan tonight. We have a copy of that book to give away, and we'll do that later in the programme. Quick mention about Friday's Euro Millions jackpot, guaranteed 113 million. One massive draw. Provided you play before 7:30 this Friday, you're in with a chance, of course. Remember, play responsibly. We're celebrating this massive guaranteed Euro jackpot with a cash giveaway on our social pages and on our website, WLRFM.com. So keep an eye out over the next few days. If you want to go onto the website, WLRFM.com, we have some offers there regarding that particular draw. Joe Tobin is going to be coming in as well with three sisters to talk about the old St. Patrick's Church on Georgia Street and their plans to keep the building alive. And we've got Jerry Ahern from Aware Waterford coming in as well. Firstly, there were thousands upon thousands of women mainly on the protest yesterday up in Dublin. Childcare has been a massive political issue, and it is in the upcoming election. We heard in the debates that we reported yesterday and the day before on this programme, one of the main issues affecting so many different people in terms of parents leaving their children for childcare, in terms of those that work in the childcare facilities, and also those that try to run the childcare facilities. So we're going to I've been talking to some of those facilitators and some of the people who are on the protest. Catherine O'Grady, good morning.
Good morning, Damien. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Tell me, you went to the protest yesterday. Why did you go?
Well, I wanted to be part of the huge mass movement that had been advertised prior to this event. I wanted to go as an early years provider and colleague to support all the childcare facilities that decided to close yesterday.
And tell me a little bit about yourself, or where are you living or working?
I'm working in Play Together Childcare here in Waterford. I am a preschool leader. And we have a large service, and we decided yesterday to close our service completely, our preschool, our creche and our after-school service. And we had great support from the parents to enable us to do so.
Do you believe any of the parties when they say they're going to deliver what you want for them?
Golly, it's at the time of year, the timing of our rally is obviously right before the elections. And I know that there are politicians who will promise this and promise that, but I don't think they would have realised that the volume of people that were going to travel yesterday. We've over 30,000 people travelling, so they needed to pick up, and I think they would have had a clear message yesterday that change is needed. And I'm sure that there'll be all those 30,000 voters on, please God, on Saturday will have their voice heard to the person that they feel is going to deliver.
And very finally, because I know you're under pressure there, how frustrating is it for you on a daily basis?
It's very frustrating. Well, I love my job, and I think everybody in the sector does love their job, but it's becoming increasingly difficult for services, the service that we're giving, with the funding that is being provided, especially for workers on a personal level, and as well for parents and for the providers who are doing these, providing these schemes, and all the mountain of paperwork that we have to contend with, and even the whole inspection process. We're looking for streamlining of these processes and just a little bit more collaboration with us on the ground to listen to what we need and pay more attention.
Catherine, I'll let you go. Catherine O'Grady, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, Damien. Take care.
Jonathan Caulfield, good morning.
Well, Damien, how's it going?
Good, thank you. Thank you for joining us this morning. Jonathan, tell us a little bit about yourself and where do you work, please?
So, at the minute I'm working over in Kilmaccow, Montessori. I'm working in the early years for the last 5 years now. I took a change. I went to college there. I've done my 3 years in college, and I've been working in the early years since then. What
sort of problems, not that you have at work, obviously it's a lovely place to work, but in terms of salaries and in terms of, I suppose, recognition and the respect you think you deserve for the work you do?
So what's happening at the minute, Damien, is there's just not enough funding being paid to providers. And that means when they pay all their overheads, their insurance, their rent, they're struggling to pay their staff a decent wage. And those that do pay their staff a good wage will end up not taking a wage themselves sometimes, or else making very little in their business. It's actually just not sustainable at all. With rising costs every year, it's just not working for them.
Because we hear of people going on strike or protest that's normally against their employers. You're actually on your employer's side on this, and they're on your side on this. This is what makes this different, I suppose, isn't it?
Oh, this is the big thing about it. Like, my employer, and indeed everyone's employer, they were there with us. They wanted us to go to this, you know what I mean? This affects them as much as it affects us. They're trying their very best to keep their business going, and we're trying our very best to keep that business running on the ground. But unfortunately, year after year, we're losing some of the most skilled and passionate workers because they just can't afford to live on what they're earning. And
how difficult is it for you personally, like on the wages you're on?
Luckily enough, Damien, I'm actually one of the very few, especially from talking to people yesterday, who was on a decent wage. Still at that, my own employer will be thinking that we deserve a lot more than what we are getting after all our years of college and after the work we're after putting into it, you know.
And do you believe any of the promises from the political parties at present?
It's very hard to believe it at present because we've been hearing the same things year after year after year, that they're going to do this and they're going to do that. And what they usually do is they're making our jobs harder, if you can believe that.
OK, Jonathan, thanks. I'll let you go there. I'm going to talk now to Rena Walsh. Good morning, Rena.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, thank you very much. Tell me a little bit about yourself and where do you work, please?
My name is Rena Walsh. I work in Learn Through Play, and we're based in the Butler Community Centre in St John's Park in Waterford.
Okay.
I've been there for over 13 years now. I'm the owner-manager of the preschool, and we do after school as well, and full day care service.
Do you love your work?
Absolutely, I love my work. I've spent a fortune on qualifications over the year. I'm now a postgrad. I have a master's degree in children and youth and family. And I just believe the children in our community deserve the best.
Why did you go on the protest? Why were people protesting yesterday? Why are you up in arms?
Because we're at breaking point. And that sums it up. We're just at breaking point. We're just at the stage now where we can't take any more pressure. And going from loving our work and loving working with children, the job it's evolved to one of pressure. That we have so much paperwork that we have to do. There's so many cutbacks. We keep hearing that we are the employers. Yes, there's an argument there that we're not, because we're being told how to do our job, when to do our job, what our opening times are. We have a curriculum. We have a quality program. We have different departments coming in who disagree with each other, and yet we're meant to fold into the middle. We have the Department of Education coming in and telling us that we have to allow children the freedom to run and climb and see danger for themselves. And then we have TUSLA coming in and telling us that that's not allowed.
What do you want, Rena? I know there's so many things that you'd like, but what would be one of the main things?
Predominantly, the biggest thing that we want is more funding. We badly need more funding. I have 3 other graduates that work for me out of my staff. There's 7 of us full time there. 4 of us, I hold a postgraduate degree. 3 of them hold level 8 degrees, and there's 2 level 6s. Now, those girls have spent a fortune on their qualifications as well. They want full-time work. They want the pay that they would get if they were teachers. And what's happening? While I'm doing my best to pay, I hold my staff. I tend to hold staff when I have them because I try to be fair. But it's getting more and more difficult for us to do that. Like those girls as graduates, I don't blame them if they would leave me, because another year add-on and they can work as teachers. They'll have incremental pay scales.
Yeah.
Some of them are going to work as SNAs where they don't need their qualifications because they're going to get better money. At least then they'll get their holiday pay. They won't be signing on for the summer. Now, talking about signing on for the summer, the answer from most parties seems to be we'll increase the ECCE from 38 weeks to 42 weeks. I haven't heard anyone say that to teachers in primary school. There's a reason why it's 38 weeks, the same as primary school, and it's called burnout. You work for 22, 3 to 4 year olds every day, and the odds are you will have 3 to 4 children with additional needs within that classroom. Now that's a whole different ballgame, because the amount of level of support that we get from the government again has to be part funded by me. You know,
Rena, we've so many issues to talk about. I'm going to try and get a couple more voices in. Listen, we'll talk to you again soon. Okay.
Thank you very much, Damien.
Okay, I'm joined now by Heather Kiley. Heather, good morning.
Hi, Damien. How are you?
Wonderful, thank you. Heather, you're with the Tiptoes Community Childcare Centre, or the Sacred Heart Family Resource Centre in, where are you based?
We're based in Richardson's Meadow and the Kilkenny area.
And tell me a little bit about the reason that the protest was so important yesterday and this issue is so important for you.
Well, I suppose in a broader context, there's over 50% of the family resource centres in Ireland that host childcare services, along with all the other stuff that they do. So there's 121 family resource centres around the country. In the context of our service here in Waterford, we're around the service. We celebrated 10 years last year with childcare, 12 with the Family Resource Centre. And we've, I suppose, seen all the ups and downs in terms of staff, in terms of the families that we support, the difficulties in trying to be, I suppose, caregivers, trying to implement all the positives around childcare and giving children opportunities.
It must be frustrating for you, Heather, is it? On a daily basis, yeah?
Yeah, it is. As a charity and a community organisation, we are dependent on the funding that we get to pay our staff. That, along with some of the fees that come in. It breaks our heart as a voluntary board of management that we extol within the community that people have a right to a decent quality of life, that there should be a proper living wage, and yet we struggle to pay a good rate of pay to our own staff because our hands are tied with the funding that comes in. We also struggle with the fact that the National Childcare Scheme and some of the schemes before it are not necessarily fit for purpose, and that the families that are most marginalised and that we support are actually not benefiting from these schemes. They are being further marginalised, and that it's not the child is not considered in all of this.
Heather, you're raising some very important points. We're going to get to a few more people now, and we might pop out to see you someday if that's okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. You'd be most welcome, and we'd be delighted to have you. And thanks for giving us the time.
No, and well done on all the great work you do. Heather, thanks very much.
Thanks, Damien.
Thank you, Heather. We're going to talk, I think, in a minute to a number of other childcare providers. Firstly, a couple of texts. Damien, I was delighted with the turnout at the protest yesterday. I work in childcare. I get less than €6 an hour to work 8.5 hours, 5 days a week. I'll never get a chance to buy a mortgage, to buy a house, to get a mortgage, as I'm well below the minimum wage. Something has to change. Get ministers to try and live on our wages. It might open their eyes. And that's from Lisa. Damien, well done to yourself and your team in the fantastic election coverage, particularly the last two programmes. Yesterday's show was excellent. This person, Paul, mentions a couple of candidates who I'm not going to mention today, just in terms of being fair to everybody. But Paul says he lives in Ferrybank. I won't vote. He's no interest in Kilkenny politics. I only care for Waterford and its future. Well done on a brilliant effort. Thank you, Paul. You should still vote, Paul. Kilkenny is important as well for Waterford in terms of electoral representation. We're going to be talking about Carlow Kilkenny in a little while, and we're going to be talking to some more childcare providers in a few seconds. Now, in a minute, I'm going to be talking to Charmaine O'Brien from Dungarvan about the protest yesterday. If you were on the protest, if you have issues regarding childcare, text us, please, or WhatsApp 083 333 975. You can call Audrey on 051 846 123. A woman rang in a few minutes ago, spoke to Audrey, talking about her daughter doing early childcare studies in Cork. It's a level 8 degree. It's costing her a fortune to put her daughter through college. Her daughter absolutely loves it, but is now asking, am I mad to do it? Will I get paid at all? Charmaine, good morning.
Good morning, Damien. How are you?
And good, thanks. You're manager of Nanon Garvon in Scoil Garvon in Dungarvan, is it? Yeah, 60 children there. That lady who rang in about her daughter studying at the minute, like one of the things about going to college is you want to look forward to having a good career that you're able to make a few bob out of as well as enjoy it. Very hard to know what to say to that lady, isn't it?
It is, Damien, to be honest. I originally went back to school in my 30s and did Montessori teaching. Then I was out of the workforce for a while because I was having kids. Went back, did my level 6 in Cláiste Cathanéfa. And from that I decided, I needed to go on and do my degree. So in my 40s, I went to Carlow and travelled up 2 nights a week and a Saturday a month over 2 years, along with 5 other over 25s, we'll say, to do our degree. Here in the Garvon, we welcome students that want work experience from, Waterford IT or Carlow. Anyone that wants work experience in the early childcare sector. And at the end of their week or their month or whatever length of time they're here for, we ask them, well, what did you think? And they said, we loved it. And my heart is telling them, well, don't do it. Go on. If you love it this much, go on and do your primary school teaching, because you're not going to be happy with the wage that you're getting. You're not going to be respected for the work and the hours that you put in. You're going to get all these promises from the government, and all we want to do is give the young kids, that are coming into, getting them ready for school and giving them a lovely, happy, playful, fun learning environment.
Yeah, because that woman also said her daughter gets sniggers at when she says she's doing early childcare, as if someone lesser. It's as if it's somehow a lesser than other degrees.
Yeah, some people's attitudes are, Damien, that we're glorified babysitters. We're not. We've gone back and done, as I said, I was in my 40s going back to do my level 8 degree. And I was very proud of going up there. I was scared. But I love working with our children. I love being the first person that they leave their mothers or fathers and come into us. That's a massive transition for any child. We prepare them for the big world out there. Even the transition going into primary school years and years ago, and I'm always saying it, we all went to school hanging off our mothers' and fathers' legs, crying, screaming, going into school. All that work is done over here. They go into primary school, happy. They're nervous, don't get me wrong. But they've made some friends. They're going in. They have their little buska loan, and they're going in with their corda that they met in the NINRA or any other service, and they're confident little learners going in. Why not respect us and give us that bit of respect and a pat on the back financially? We
were trying to get in touch with other providers there in Piltown a few seconds ago. This line seems to be engaged in case they're listening to the show. A text, Damien, anyone in childcare should get a decent wage and a gold medal to go with it. It's a massive responsibility and a very stressful job. Damien, everyone is giving out about wages, but it's hard for politicians to sort out these things if they're looking after their own wages. Another person saying they need to, if you got some politicians that actually worked in a childcare facility for a day and given the experience of what it's like to work there, Charmaine, I think it would be an eye-opener, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Look, Damien, I spoke to Paul Mooney from the Dungarvan Observer the other day, who's an actual parent, and he was gobsmacked about the conditions that we work. Now, we're very fortunate out here in Garvon. Our employer, the Board of Management, and Sylvie Henliach, they're very good to us and they respect us, and, they're always pushing for us to do things. But it doesn't just stop with them. We get paid by Unpub. Every child that comes in here is registered under the ECCE. We get paid for each one of them. If that child is late coming in the morning, if they're coming in at 9:30 in the morning, Public can walk in our front door and dock us a half an hour because the child is late. They can walk in. They want us to work offer service from 9 to 12, and we do that. But we've also got all these other admin things that they want us to do. We've policies for this, we've policies for that. I have 46 policies in my book on show here for parents to read. You know, the days of getting down on the ground and playing with the kids is gone. You know, we don't get paid for the summer. We don't get paid for Christmas or Easter. You know, we walk out the door here on the 19th of June and it's into the local social welfare office. Most of us can go. And I say most of us because the actual owners of providers of early year settings, they can't because they're self-employed. Which brings you back to, are we self-employed or are we working for Pobble? Because we get 4 inspectors can walk in here. 3 can walk in without any notice. The Department of Education will give you a day or two's notice. And, you know, whilst all inspections are, you know, accepted and we're quite happy for them to come in because, you know what, nobody's 100% perfect. So you're open, you know, for your Christmas, maybe you could do it this way, maybe you could do it better that way. But we're all offering good quality services. They should be here to support us, not condone us, not condemn us. You know, public comes in and they look at the books. Right, it's their funding. They need to know where their money is going. Is the books right? That's fine. Tuesday comes in, are the children being looked after? Is your setting safe? That's fine. Department of Education can walk in the door and say, well, I don't think you should do this. Maybe you should do 20 observations per child. There's mostly 22 children in a setting. So you want us to do 20 observations per child. Where's the ratio? You know, it's 1 to 11.
Yeah.
You want us to sit and look at one child, observe them, and do it 20 times. You know, where's the quality time with the kids being spent? It's great that the parents are getting, you know, help. They deserve it because people need to go back to work. But again, nobody is looking after us. The people that are giving the quality education. We're not childminders.
Exactly.
We're not babysitters. We're educators.
Listen, we're going to come back to this, Charmaine, next week because I'm going to be visiting one of the childcare providers, and I know you were on the election debate the other night.
Would you like to come out to see us, Dave?
I would, certainly, yeah. We're going to be in Dungarvan next Wednesday as well, so I'll give you a shout about that. Thank you.
Come out and see us. We'd love for you to come out and see what we do.
Yeah, well, we'll certainly be in touch, okay?
Absolutely, great. Thank you very much for all your airtime.
Not at all. Charmaine O'Brien there from Dungarvan. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Damien, lots of texts. I worked in the early childhood for nearly 10 years, had to leave due to the pay being so low. I also paid €4,000 to put myself through a level 8 degree at night. The sector was calling for us to have these degrees and yet they don't pay us properly. It's just disgraceful. Damien, I'm in my 40s. I went back to college. I've just completed my level 6 in early childcare. Now I'm really contemplating going to work in this area because I don't know if I can go to the work in this area. It's no way cost effective. I have 2 young children on my own. I'm just bewildered about the whole thing. It's just sad. Damien, I'm listening to the discussion this morning. My granddaughter has arthritis since she was 1.5. She started in early school last year and has thrived. She runs in every morning, is extremely happy, and it has a massive impact on her ongoing health. These men and women and the facilities are amazing. They should be respected and paid for the amazing work they do. Damien, my son goes to Butlerstown Play School and his teachers are the first people outside of our family circle that he's learned to trust. They're fantastic to him and it's like home away from home. They should be paid properly for the service they provide. That's in from Fiona in Kilmeaden. This is a massive issue, folks. It really is. I think it's going to get bigger and I think it's a section of society that haven't been treated properly in terms of pay and respect, and that's what it comes down to, respect. Coming up, we're going to be talking to Seamus about elections. I also want you to text in the word Stephanie, Stephanie, if you want to win a copy of Running from the Shadows by Stephanie Hickey. Tells how she survived sexual abuse at the hands of a trusted family member. It's going to be launched in Dungarvan tonight. 083 333 975. Now, he was the Chief Clerk in the Circuits Court's office in Waterford. Seamus, good morning.
Good morning, Damien.
Thanks very much for joining us.
And thanks very much for inviting me.
Will you blow into an old sort of a she shanty, get into an old hooks and crooks?
If things get rough, I might break into song.
Break into song. Text us 083 333 975. Any questions you have for Seamus? He is our expert today on voting. Also, keep your texts coming in, dozens of texts coming in. The word Stephanie, Stephanie. We've got a free copy of Running from the Shadows with Stephanie Hickey being launched tonight. Hachette Press and Shane Dunphy, co-author. in Dungarvan tonight, and that's on in the Park Hotel. You hear the interview after 11 o'clock with Stephanie. More people texting in about their childcare issues. We'll come to that in a second. Seamus, you have a ballot paper in front of me. We've got 11 names on it. A lot of people have been asking about how does this system work. So some people would sort of think, I kind of know how it works, but the system that we operate in Ireland, very simply, it's a system called proportional representation.
Yeah, well, the first thing I have, Damien, is I call it preferential representation.
Preferential representation. So what does it mean effectively? Single transferable vote?
Yeah, it means that if you go into the polling station, I suppose the two things before you even vote would be to make sure that your ballot paper is stamped by the presiding officer. That's
very important. We heard about that today.
And to bring a photographic ID with you.
Yep.
You know, they'd be the two things. When you get your ballot paper, you go in behind the screen and you mark it. Now, I have an unusual way of marking the ballot paper. I start with number 11.
Okay, so you mark upwards.
I mark back from...
Yeah, I heard somebody talking to me the other day about this, because we've got 11 candidates, so potentially you have 11 votes. Is that the way of putting it? Is that a simple way of putting it? No?
Well, yeah, what you'll be doing is you'll be saying, I'll give my number 1 to X candidate.
Yeah.
So what I'd be saying to people is, if that candidate is not going to be elected, or even if they're going to be elected on the first count, don't waste, you might as well bundle up your vote and throw it in the bin if you just vote like that.
If you just vote one.
Yeah.
So you're saying basically you should vote at least, how far down the line should you vote? If you go...
I'd be for voting down the whole length of the paper, but that's my preference.
And when you say voting down the whole length of the paper, that means not starting at the top. It means picking the person that you want.
Yeah.
First person you want to be elected, put number 1 beside that.
Absolutely.
And then the next person in preference, as you say, the preferential vote, number 2.
And the
go all the way to 11.
The candidates will be on the ballot paper in alphabetical order. That's the way they'll be. Now, the ballot paper that I gave you is one that I did out, and it's not...
it's all names of people that are here in WLR.
Apart from myself. And
I'm down at the bottom, Tiernan, because I'm obviously... T is my surname, and I get feck all votes. Thanks very much.
No, that's not the way it works. Damien, people often say I give a scratch to the man at the end of the paper. So you go in and you vote in order of your choice. So you...
1, 2, 3, 4 at least.
4.
Even for example, there's 4 seats in this constituency.
Yes.
So you should at least go 4.
Well, I would say at least go 6.
Why? Because
the chances of you picking the 4, especially in this election that are going to be elected, would be slim enough.
Okay.
You know,
Carlow, Kilkenny, you've got 5 candidates, Wexford 5, Tipperary 5. Again, anybody listening to this, at least go 7, 8, whatever the case may be.
Depending on the number of people that are on the ballot paper.
Yes.
You know, I'd certainly go 2 over the number of seats that are available.
Okay. Now, once it comes to the actual voting on Sunday, the counting of votes, the first thing is, we'll talk about somebody getting elected on the first quota, on the first count.
On the first count.
So obviously, the number of people that we have in the constituency that are voting, the eligible voters and those that have voted, and divided by the number of candidates, there's a system worked out for the quota. Explain what the quota is.
The quota is calculated. It's the number of seats. It's the number of valid votes.
Yes.
You take the number of seats in the constituency, which is 4. You add 1 to it. So you divide the valid poll by 5, and you add 1 to your answer, and that's your quota.
And approximately over the last few years, it's worked out at around
9,000-10,000.
9,000.
Yeah.
Let's say 10,000. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say a candidate this Saturday, and on the count happens on Sunday, let's say he or she receives 14,000 first preference votes. That's 14,000 number 1s. He or she then is deemed elected on the first count. Is that right?
Yeah.
Now, there's 4,000, he or she has 4,000 votes over the quota. So these are now known as surplus.
Yes.
How are those votes redistributed back amongst the rest of the pack?
Okay. You have to sort the whole 14,000 votes again.
Okay.
Into their number 2s, and you work out the proportion of the surplus, the percentage, basically, that would go to each candidate, and they get that percentage of the 4,000.
Okay. So if there is...
That's, Damien, the important thing about it that you need to remember is that if a candidate goes over the quota, every candidate has a box at the election, right?
Yes.
And their votes are kept in the box.
Right.
So at all stages, a candidate going over the quota must have a quota of votes in his box.
Yes.
So if you're out at the count and you're looking at the array of votes up at the top, the candidate who's been elected, his box should still have his 10,000 votes in it.
So it's not a case of you just picking out the first 4,000 votes. You pick out the 14,000, you go through them all.
Yes.
And basically then you work out on a percentage basis what candidates gets a second preference based on those 14,000 votes.
Yeah. There's a formula for...
A formula?
Yeah.
Okay, a very simple formula.
Yeah.
Well, an intricate formula, but simple once you know it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So then those votes come back. So the 4,000 surplus votes come back into play.
Yes.
And they're now back into the system.
Yes.
Like a football match, the ball is thrown in again.
Yeah.
Those votes come back into play.
Yeah.
And then they're distributed to the remaining 10 candidates.
Yes.
And they'll get a certain percentage. And if any of these candidates get enough votes to bring them over the quota, then they're also deemed elected.
Yes. Now, the interesting thing is it's only on the first count that all the votes will be resorted. On any subsequent count where somebody is elected, it's the votes that carry him over the quota are resorted. So, we'd say in the scenario we have here, if you had Damien Tiernan over the quota, and he had a surplus of 2,000, those 2,000 are distributed. Liz Reddy gets 1,000 of them. She gets over the quota. So the 1,000 votes that carried her over, so it's basically the 1,000 that she got are resorted, and it's their number 3s or maybe number 4s even that would. It's the preference for the highest continuing candidate is what's taken into consideration.
Taken into consideration. Now, let's see if you then nobody gets elected in the next quota, the next vote,
next count,
okay? So then you have what's called elimination.
Yes.
So then instead of going into the top of people being elected, you then go to the bottom, in other words, those that have the fewest amount of votes.
Yes. And they're eliminated, and all their votes, no matter where they got them or when they got them, are resorted.
Okay, so let's say a candidate has 1,000 votes.
Yeah.
And they are deemed to be eliminated.
Yes.
Their 1,000 votes then are looked at again, sorted again, and if somebody has given, if you've only given number 1 for that person and nothing else, that vote is put to the side effectively.
Yeah.
That's
what you see climbing up, and you'll see it at the end of, and this is one of the things that galls me about elections, is these non-transferable votes.
Yeah.
And they appear at the bottom of the sheet on the count, and you know the title of them, if you look up any of the legislation, they say non-transferable, not effective. So basically, you've binned your vote after,
after one.
If your person is eliminated on the first count and you haven't put in a number 2, well then that's it, you're done.
You're done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's not that your vote is wasted. You're still gone in. You've made the effort to go in and vote and you've done your thing. For example, somebody just texted, how many times can I mark the ballot paper? I thought only 3. No, you can mark it.
You can mark it down to 11.
Down to 11. And again, we're talking about numbers here, 1 to 11.
Absolutely.
Don't put an X.
No.
Don't put an X in it. Don't spoil it.
Yeah, the one thing I would say to people is, if you're going to vote, do it right. Don't go in and,
Yeah, now this person, here's a good one. This person says, you're wrong, this person thinks, Seamus. If you don't want a certain party elected, you leave them blank. Only vote for those that you want to be elected. That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
No, I wouldn't. Because if you have a party and you don't want to get them elected, there's your number 11 and for that person.
Okay, but you can't leave it blank as well.
Oh, you can leave it blank, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw a vote in a recent, I won't say it's a recent election, in an election long ago where, I'm not going to mention the names, there were two candidates from the same party.
Yeah.
And it was well into the morning, and we were counting the votes. I think it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. But a vote for one of the candidates was number 13 on the ballot paper of 15.
Wow.
And the other person got number 14. You know,
and that
so
vote comes
that
into
vote
play.
number 13 went into the box belonged to.
And we remember Dick Spring down in Kerry getting, I think, 4 votes separated him when he got elected in 1982, I think it was, or earlier.
The smaller amount of votes tend to come in a lot in local elections, where you'd be dealing with smaller.
Yes. I know we're running up against time because there's so much to talk about. And the person says, I'm only voting number 1. I don't want my vote going anywhere else, says this person.
Well, if that's a choice for them,
correct,
Damien, and if... I would say if somebody votes number 1, their candidate doesn't get in, does that give you the right to carp later on and say, this government is doing nothing for me, or,
Yeah.
I suppose you've exercised your vote, so.
Another person, Damien, I don't think it's a good idea to keep voting down the sheet, as you'll only drag in somebody maybe you didn't want. So only vote for the few that you want. They're having a right go at you now this morning.
Well, that's a point of view as well, but...
Yeah, everybody's entitled.
You could be putting in somebody that you don't want as well.
Yes. So once the person then, the lowest candidate eliminated, if nobody else then reaches the quota, it literally, you just go through it one by one.
The next
candidate, and they might only have a certain amount of votes. So you might have 2 or 3 people eliminated during one particular count.
You could have. Yes, there's a formula for working that out as well. Normally, you just eliminate them one at a time, but there are circumstances when you can eliminate 2 or 3 together.
Yes, because their combined vote would not be enough to go ahead of maybe the 4th candidate,
or to save their deposit,
or save their deposit. How much do you have to pay for your deposit?
I don't know what it is. It used to be £100 when I was there.
I think it might be around 500. And how much do you have to save? What percentage do you have?
Quarter of the quota.
A quarter of the quota. So again, let's say approximately 10,000 of the quota, 2,500 votes. Yeah. And that's not just first preference votes, that's first, second, third.
Your parcel at the end of the day, if you have over the quarter of the quota,
you'll get your money back. That's all you'll get. A bit of abuse and tiredness and all sorts of stuff. And they'll say, well done, they'll slap you on the back. Dame, we haven't received a voting card yet in Abbey's side. Have they gone out yet? I presume they should have.
Well, I got mine yesterday.
Okay, so it might be in the post today.
Yeah. The voting card is not necessary to vote.
No, it's not. That's very important. Yeah, if you don't have your voting card, still go along, but make sure to bring ID with you, passport, driving licence.
And if that person has a computer, they should go onto the local authority site and see if they are registered.
Yes. Damien, can I bring my own pen or my biro to vote?
You can.
You can?
Yeah.
You don't have to use the pencil?
No.
Nothing wrong with using the pencil, though.
No, it's not wrong with using the pencil. And
don't take pictures. You're not supposed to take pictures of your ballot paper or anything like that.
No, you're not.
In terms of you can't vote twice for the same person. No, of course you can't vote twice for the same person. Other people saying they're only going to vote number 1. Again, they're fully entitled to vote number 1 if they want.
Absolutely.
But you're just explaining the beauty in some respects of this system is it allows you more than one vote effectively.
Exactly. And if the person you're voting number 1 for doesn't make it, well, you can say, well, my first choice didn't get in, but my second choice did.
Yes.
Do
you like the system?
I do. I think it's a great system.
Why?
Because of that, that you're not stuck with just the one vote for, that you have the choice.
And the system allows that transfers are so important. So without getting into too many details, what it means effectively is what you've been talking about. As the vote goes on and continues, your second, third, fourth preference becomes a transfer, and that transfers to another person.
Yeah. If you take that ballot paper that I gave you, and the way that was working out was at the end of the first count, when the first count was done, Oliver Carlow was eliminated. So his votes were distributed.
He got elected, yeah. Good man.
No, he got
eliminated, yeah.
Out the gap.
Out the gap.
Nobody got elected.
Yeah.
At the end of the second count, the next count, which would have been the third count, Timmy Ryan got the door.
Yeah.
And his votes were divided up. And it's worth pointing out now at that stage that the votes, the Ryan votes, will also include some of the Carroll votes.
Yes.
And so on down at one stage we had Liz Reddy being eliminated, and her votes would have, all the votes that she had gathered at that stage, she was going out on count 6, and the votes that she had gathered at that stage would have been Carl, Ryan, Harris and Berriford. So she would have an array of votes in the thing, you know, and they could be number 5 on some of them, and they'd still be counting.
Very, very good. Seamus, that's excellent. Super, super explanation. Do I get elected in this?
Well, you were still there when I was leaving, Tim.
Listen, thank you so much. It's great talking to you. And thanks for putting in the effort to do that, because it's really interesting. Any texts, please send your texts in. Why is there a serial number on the ballot paper, says a texter?
Well, because
each ballot has a number on it.
Each ballot paper is numbered for the reason when you're sending out the ballot papers, they're supposed to be in books of 50. So it's a way of keeping a check on.
Very good. Seamus, thanks very much.
Okay,
Timmy. And €500 it is. Julie found out. She was in the courthouse yesterday. Thanks.
Great stuff. Thank you.
God bless. Good. Mind
Thanks,
yourself.
Tim. Bye.
Now we're going to get your texts and comments in a few minutes. Going to have a quick chat here with Dean Egan. Dean, good morning.
Good morning, Damien. How are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Nearly electioned out, as you can imagine, and as you know yourself.
Dean Egan, originally from Bagnallstown in County Carlow, and working with Beat 102, 103. Thanks for coming in to join us. You're going to be covering the Kilkenny-Carlow constituency for Beat during the count on Sunday. How is the constituency looking? We said we'd give our listeners a kind of a snapshot in terms of Carlow Kilkenny at the minute. It's a 5-seater.
It is. It's a 5-seater constituency. If you look at the Irish Times, they did candidate profiles. You may have seen them online, and their predictions were 3 Fianna Fáil and 2 Fine Gael, and they had pretty much ruled out anybody else who was on the ticket. But I think that has drastically changed with the recent polls and Sinn Féin. So I think Kathleen Funchion now, who is a sitting TD, is back in the ranks, and she may have been left out of them up to maybe 2 weeks ago, Damien.
Yeah, she's a sitting Sinn Féin TD.
Yeah, absolutely.
And her star was waning somewhat in the perception of pollsters, as you say, locally and nationally. But if there's going to be a national pickup with Sinn Féin, she could still be back in the race. That's what you're saying.
I think so. I think with the way things are going with Sinn Féin, we know now they've topped the polls on a national level.
Opinion polls only.
Opinion polls,
Snapshot,
of course.
yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Predictions, of course. I think Kathleen has a very good chance this time around, and that's from talking to people in Carlow Kilkenny. She is the only Sinn Féin candidate, which means if people are following the national trend and want Sinn Féin to be the leaders of the country, essentially, for Carlow Kilkenny they have one option, and that is Kathleen Funchion. And I think, having spoke to people on the ground in Carlow Kilkenny, just chit-chat, conversations with friends, family, I think Kathleen is going to do very well. And I wouldn't be surprised personally if she was the first elected, or maybe she could come second in line to Fianna Fáil's John McGuinness.
Wow, that's a big turnaround if it does happen, because the two main parties up to now, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, they would argue quite strongly that to get 2 seats, even potentially 3 in Carlow Kilkenny, is a possibility, and it's also a constituency which has delivered a minister for Kilkenny over the years. John McGuinness sitting Fianna Fáil TD. We have the Aylwards down the south of the county.
Bobby,
you think might still be okay?
I think Bobby will be okay with Fianna Fáil. And to be honest with you, Damien, the only real change I see in Carlow Kilkenny, and you may remember in 2016 this happened as well, Jennifer Murnane O'Connor, Fianna Fáil candidate in 2016 and running again this time around. She's been a senator in between. She was pretty much home and dry, and I remember she walked into the count centre. Well, she didn't walk in, she was lifted in on shoulders into that count centre, and she was met with applause, and we pretty much thought Jennifer had the seat. And then you know how transfers work, and it went to Pat Deering. And I think this time around Pat Deering may be in trouble, and I think Jennifer Murnane may take Pat Deering's seat, and I think everything else may stay the same. And
the reason we're talking about the two of them together is that they are Carlow-based.
They are Carlow-based.
And Carlow wants to return.
Carlow wants to return, and another thing that seems to pop up every now and then, Damien, or around election time, is the people of Carlow feel they have one representative, being Pat Deering, and they feel that the other TDs are very much Kilkenny based, and the sense, I suppose, is that they only really have a presence around election time. And I think it would be the feeling in general in Carlow. Kathleen Funchion from Sinn Féin, she has an office in Carlow, and Pat Deering has an office in Carlow, and Senator Jennifer Murnane O'Connor. But nobody else in of the sitting TDs has a presence on a day-to-day.
Yes. Fine Gael ticket, do you think they're safe enough with the two? Is there a possibility that a Green Party Malcolm Noonan might come in? There's obviously Labour has a strong tradition as well within the constituency.
There is, of course, like Anne Phelan, people will remember the Labour CD. She had a good rep, and she lost her seat in 2016. Dennis Hines, who's a councillor, people would be familiar with Dennis from SIP2. He's running for the Labour Party. Like you say, Malcolm Noonan with the Greens, because climate change and our environment is such a big issue at the moment. And of course, Malcolm, well known in the constituency, he may have a chance. But I think Patrick O'Neill, he's a Kilkenny councillor. His dad was a senator. Pat O'Neill,
senator.
Exactly. I think Patrick is resonating with younger voters. He's in his 30s. He's fighting for the issues that matter to young people, such as helping them get their houses, helping them get their mortgages, helping our generation, or his generation, our generation, my age, the younger generation.
Not me, yeah.
And I think.
And who's he standing for?
He's standing for Fine Gael. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, if you were voting on, say, what you want yourself for the next 4 or 5 years, I think a lot of people will pick Patrick.
He was in Raynua for a while, was it?
No, that was Patrick McKee.
Patrick McKee. So there's a difference here.
There is a difference. Some
people would confuse them.
Some people will confuse them. So this is Patrick O'Neill, South Kilkenny, as far as I know. And Patrick McKee then ran in Renew, of course, came from Fianna Fáil and now has left political life.
John Paul Phelan should be safe?
John Paul should be safe. I think Bobby Aylward will be okay because he has that huge vote in South Kilkenny. John McGuinness, I think, has the city vote. I think John is okay. Again, Kathleen Funchion, I think she will get her seat. And if I was to call it, I would think Jennifer Murnane will probably go in for the Carlow seat, and maybe Patrick O'Neill. But look, we'll find out on Sunday, early hours Monday morning, but I think that's how it's going to go.
Dean, thank you very much.
No problem.
How are they on at Bagenalstown?
Not a bother.
You said that with a real good Bagenalstown lilt. Thanks very much.